The park at closing time has a specific quality that does not translate to anything else. Sun low, snack bar shuttered. The picnic table's empty. One golf cart parked sideways across two spaces because nobody was paying attention when they parked it, which is the kind of detail the show used as a punchline for years before it stopped being a punchline. This is what the final image of regular show looks like in your head if you watched all 8 seasons and then closed the laptop and tried, weeks later, to remember how it ended. Not the wedding, not the cosmic battle, the empty cart in the empty parking lot at the end of a workday that has stopped being a workday. The image the show was building toward without telling you it was building towards it. Regular Show was a comedy about 2 friends in their early 20s who worked at a public park as groundskeepers and accidentally triggered the end of the universe roughly once a week for 8 seasons on Cartoon Network. That is the surface. That is the pitch. Underneath, the show was always about time, about what happens when the holding pattern ends, about the gap between staying who you are and becoming who you are going to be. Every character on the show is a different theory of how a person survives that gap. Some try to outrun it. Some surrender to it. Some are immortal and have been losing to it for centuries. One of them is, quietly, a god. One of them is, quietly, a spy. One of them is, quietly, dead. The video that follows is one theory per character, not the surface read, not the official lore. The theory that explains why each of them is in this show in the first place. The thread that connects the visual joke to the emotional architecture underneath. This is Velvo. Settle in. The video runs long because the show ran long, and the patterns only show up when you look at them all at once. A blue jay in his early 20s sits at the kitchen counter of the park house at 3 in the morning, eating cereal directly from the box. He is not eating it because he is hungry. He is eating it because he has not learned how to do anything else when he cannot sleep. The show holds on him for several seconds. It does not cut. It does not score the moment. It just lets him sit there with the cereal box and the dim kitchen light and the wallpaper that the park house has had since before any of them moved in. Mordecai is the show's lead. The show is named for the rhythm of his life. He is 6 feet tall and shaped like a bird, and he is, in every frame the show ever shoots, recognizable as a specific kind of person you have actually met. The kind of person who is very smart and slightly funny and visibly stuck. The kind of person who graduated high school with plans and then did not execute the plans, and then woke up one morning to find that several years had passed and the plans had quietly retired without him noticing. The official lore on Mordecai is that he wanted to be an artist. The show mentions this casually in a few different episodes, as if it is incidental. He went to art school for a while. He stopped. He took the park job because his friend Rigby took the park job, and they had been doing things together since they were small. The art is something he used to do. The job is something he is currently doing. The gap between those two facts is the engine of the entire character. Here is the theory. Mordecai is not a man in his early 20s. Mordecai is a man who is being held in a developmental holding pattern that began somewhere in late high school and has not yet released him. The body is in his 20s. The emotional clock is back at 17. The show is the long, slow unfreezing of that clock, and the unfreezing does not happen on the timetable he expects. He thinks the unfreezing will be a relationship. The unfreezing turns out to be something else. Watch what happens around the women in his life across the 8 seasons. Margaret, CJ, both of them are intelligent. Both of them are, in their own ways, ahead of him. Margaret with the trajectory toward journalism. CJ with the emotional steadiness Mordecai keeps mistaking for permission. Both relationships fail in roughly the same way. Mordecai cannot quite be present in them because he is, in some part of his head, still 17, still imagining the relationship from the outside, still thinking of love the way a high schooler thinks of love, as an event that happens to him, not as a thing he has to keep showing up for. The show frames these failures as ordinary romantic comedy beats. He picks the wrong moment. He says the wrong thing. He chooses the safe option. But the failures all share a structural feature. He is always one developmental stage behind the woman he is with. Not because the women are unusual, because Mordecai is frozen. There is a scene fairly early in the show's run where Mordecai is asked, point blank, what he wants. The answer he gives is some version of the answer he always gives. Something about wanting to figure things out. Something about needing more time. The character he is talking to does not push him. The show does not push him. The line lands the way an unanswered question lands, suspended. What you have to understand about Mordecai is that he is, at his core, a person who has decided, without ever saying it out loud, that the moment he commits to a future, the future starts. And the future starting is the thing he is most afraid of. So he stays at the park job. He keeps the apartment with Rigby. He keeps the routines. He keeps the cereal box at 3 in the morning. Because every routine that survives is one more day that the future has not started. The show does something with this that very few shows about young men do. It does not punish him for the freezing. It does not make him grow up by giving him a wake-up call. It does not strand him in the middle of season 6 and then reform him in season 7. The freezing is not a problem that gets solved. The freezing is just the condition of the character. Mordecai is the man who is frozen and who is, around him, watching everyone else thaw at different rates. Watch what the show does in the final season. The cosmic plot sends the entire park into space. The familiar world disappears. The job, the apartment, the routines, the cereal box. All of it gets pulled out from under the cast at once. And Mordecai, who has spent 8 seasons locating his identity in those exact routines, has to be a person without them. He is not good at it. The show does not pretend he is good at it. He flounders. He misreads people. He makes the wrong moves with the women in his life one final time. The freezing does not end with the holding pattern ending. The freezing has nothing to do with the holding pattern ending. The freezing was always inside him. What the show does in the very last episode is jump forward in time. It shows Mordecai years later. He is a painter. He has a family. He is older. The body has caught up with the body. Whatever was frozen has, somewhere off screen, in the years between the end of the cosmic plot and the moment the show is now showing you, finally thawed. Here is the part of the theory that matters. The show does not tell you how the thaw happened. There is no scene where Mordecai decides to grow up. There is no montage. There is no breakthrough. The show simply skips the years it would take a person like Mordecai to become a person who paints for a living and has a family and lives somewhere that is not the park house. It skips them because, the theory goes, those years were never going to be dramatic. They were going to be slow. They were going to be the years where the freeze melted in inches. The show could not put that on screen because watching a freeze melt in inches takes longer than 8 seasons. So it cuts to the result. Think about what that means about everything that came before. The 8 seasons of the show were not the story of Mordecai's growth. They were the story of the holding pattern. The growth happens after the show ends, in the years the show does not show you, in the work he does in private, in the relationships he builds in the gaps between the episodes that exist. The show is the holding pattern itself. The growth is the answer to the holding pattern. The answer is off-screen. This is the engine of the whole series. Not that Mordecai grows up. That growing up was always going to take longer than the show. That what the show is doing is documenting the conditions a person stays inside for the years before the change starts. The painting at the end is not a career change. It is a delayed inheritance. He was always going to be a painter. The show is what happened on the way there. That image, the cereal box at 3 in the morning, the kitchen light, the empty room, is not a sad image. It is a still image. The man in it is frozen. The freeze has not started melting yet. The show has not yet told you it ever will. But it does eventually melt. Just not on the show. Not where you can see it. Worth holding that for a second before moving on. The lead character of one of the most popular animated shows of his era spends the entire show frozen, and the show does not punish him for it, and the show does not pretend he ever solves it on screen. That is unusual. That is, in television, almost unique, and it is the foundation everything else is built on. The theory rests on something the show does almost casually, the way it lets him fail at things, and never marks the failure as a failure. He loses the relationship with Margaret, and the show does not call it tragedy. He loses the relationship with CJ, and the show does not call it tragedy either. He loses contact with people. He drifts from things he said he was going to do. The show frames each of these losses as the next beat in an ongoing story, not as a wound. Because, in the logic of the holding pattern, they are not wounds. They are weather. They happen. They keep happening. The man inside the holding pattern keeps showing up to the same job in the morning, regardless. There is a particular quality to Mordecai's voice in the show that you only notice if you watch a lot of episodes back to back. The voice does not modulate the way a young man's voice modulates. He does not get more excited as the stakes rise. He does not break into panic when the universe is, again, ending. The voice stays level, even, slightly tired. The voice of a person who has been running the same emotional response since high school and has not yet been forced to upgrade it. J.G. Quintel, who created the show, voices Mordecai. Quintel is not a trained voice actor. The show is, in its earliest episodes, audibly the voice of a person who is figuring out how to do this in real time. The voice gets steadier as the show runs, but it never gets dramatic. It stays flat. It stays the voice of a person who has not had the experience yet that would crack the voice open. That choice, to keep the voice level for 8 seasons of cosmic threat and emotional collapse, is one of the most important formal choices the show ever makes. It tells you something about Mordecai that the writing alone could not tell you. The man inside this body has not yet been forced to feel something fully. Notice what is missing from his life when you survey the 8 seasons. There is no parent on screen. The show does not show you Mordecai's family, except in glancing references. There is no childhood home. There is no sibling. There is no scene where Mordecai goes back to where he came from. The character does not have a backstory in the way other characters on the show have backstories. He is simply present. He started at the park. The show begins. Whatever came before is not available to you. The theory is that the show withholds the backstory because the backstory is the freeze itself. Whatever happened in late high school, whatever decision was made or avoided, whatever moment happened where the clock stopped, that is the thing the show cannot show, because the moment of stopping is not a dramatic moment. It is the absence of one. It is the moment a young person quietly decides that they will postpone the rest of their life by a few months, and then a few more months, and then forgets that they made the decision. There is no scene to put on screen. So the show does not put one on screen. It just shows you the result. It shows you the man at the kitchen counter at 3 a.m. eating the cereal. What the show eventually shows you in the last episode is the man older. Not happier exactly. Not unhappier. Older. The freeze finally thawed. The painting at the end, on screen, is the thing he was always going to do. He just had to wait for the holding pattern to be the thing he saw clearly enough to leave. Mordecai is theory 1. The lead is the frozen man. The show is the inventory of the freezing. And every other character on the show is, in some way, a different answer to the question Mordecai cannot answer for himself. Some of them are warnings. Some of them are alternatives. Some of them are the future arriving early. If Mordecai is the man who is frozen and watching the freeze, the man across the kitchen table from him every morning has the opposite problem. Rigby is not frozen. Rigby is moving, but he is moving away from adulthood, not toward it. And the further the show runs, the clearer it becomes that the trajectory is not an accident. It is a choice, a theory, a philosophical position dressed up as a personality trait. And it is the second insane theory of the show. Rigby sleeps on a trampoline. This is one of the first details the show ever establishes about him. The bedroom upstairs in the park house has, on Mordecai's side, a normal bed, frame, mattress, pillows, sheets. On Rigby's side, against the opposite wall, there's a small black trampoline that Rigby curls up on every night. There is no blanket. There is no pillow. The show does not explain it. The show does not need to. The image is the explanation. The official lore on Rigby is that he is a high school dropout. He failed his senior year. He has a younger brother named Don, who is taller, more successful, more universally loved, and the source of Rigby's longest-running emotional injury. He has been Mordecai's friend since they were both small. He is a raccoon, 3 feet tall, and he speaks in the cadence of someone who has decided, around age 11, that he is never going to take anything seriously again, because taking things seriously is what got him into the trouble he is currently in. Here's the theory. Rigby never stopped being 8 years old. The body is in its 20s. The body is doing 20-something things. But the emotional age, the part of him that decides what to take seriously, what to fear, what to want, what to defend himself against, that part of him froze around 8. And the show is the long story of what it costs to be 8 years old in a body that nobody around you reads as 8. The signs are everywhere, if you know what to look for. The trampoline, the food choices, the way he pronounces certain words, the way he loses his temper at small slights and immediately gets over them, the way he never seems to grasp the consequences of decisions until the consequences are physically in front of him. The way he and Mordecai, in their best moments, communicate in a private language that they both seem to have stopped developing somewhere around middle school. Watch how he reacts to Dawn. Dawn is taller than him. Dawn is louder. Dawn is, by every available metric, more developmentally on track. And Rigby, every time Dawn appears, cannot handle it. He becomes smaller. He defaults to old patterns. He picks fights about things that happened years ago in the family's shared past. The show frames this as a comic running gag. The theory is that it is not a gag. It is the only window the show ever gives you onto the moment Rigby's clock stopped. Whatever happened between the two of them, somewhere in their childhood, Rigby reads as the moment he decided he would stop competing. He stopped competing by stopping growing. There is an episode about an argument the two brothers have over a small object from when they were children. The episode is played for comedy. The argument is silly. The investment is wildly disproportionate to the object. But the theory says the object is not silly. The object is the place Rigby has stored years of grievance that he has never processed. The object is the only thing in his life that is the same age now as it was when his clock stopped. The episode hands him the object back, and the show plays the moment for laughs. And underneath the laughter, the moment is doing serious work. Rigby is being handed his own freeze, and the show is asking him whether he is going to do anything with it. He is not. Watch the way Rigby relates to women. He is afraid of Eileen for most of the show, not afraid of her as a person. Eileen is one of the kindest characters in the entire show, afraid of what she represents. Eileen is a person who has organized her life. She has a degree path. She has a career trajectory. She has, visibly, the developmental momentum Rigby refused to take. To be in a relationship with her is to be measured against that momentum every day. Rigby cannot do it for years. He resists her with every joke and every deflection he has available. The show treats this resistance as comedy. The theory says the resistance is the most truthful part of the character. The 8-year-old recognizing that being loved by an adult woman would require him to become an adult man, and refusing. What changes for Rigby across the show is not that he grows up. It is that he becomes, gradually, capable of being still, of sitting next to Eileen without making a joke, of letting a moment be a moment without escaping into a punchline. The show grants him those moments slowly. They accumulate. By the final season, they are common. Rigby can be in a room with another person without performing his entire self for them. He can let the room be quiet. That is not the same as growing up. The theory is careful here. Rigby does not become an adult. Rigby becomes a person who is capable of being 8 years old in front of someone who has already decided to love him as he is. Eileen is not waiting for him to grow up. She has decided that the man she loves is permanently 8 years old, and that this is acceptable, and that he is allowed to be that person inside the relationship. The relationship works because both parties have agreed on what Rigby is. Look at the wedding at the end of the show. Look at the way Rigby is dressed. Look at the way he stands. He is exactly the same Rigby he was in season 1. Nothing about him has been corrected. The woman on his arm is the one who chose him as he is, not as a future version of him. Here's the part of the theory that matters most. Rigby is the show's argument that some people do not, in fact, grow up. Not in the way the culture talks about growing up. They do not become measured. They do not become responsible in the conventional sense. They do not develop the polished adult exterior. They become, instead, a slightly more peaceful version of the kid they were. The peace is not maturity. The peace is the kid being allowed to stop running. The show takes this seriously. It does not condescend to Rigby. It does not frame him as a failed Mordecai. It does not present him as a lesson. The show loves Rigby exactly as he is. And the show extends that love to anyone in the audience who recognizes themselves in him. There are people watching this show who never grew up either, who are in their 30s and still sleep in beds that look more like trampolines than beds, who still pick fights about things from childhood, who still do not know how to be still without performing. The show tells them, 8 seasons in a row, that they are not broken. They are just Rigby. And Rigby is fine. Skips, in one episode, gives Rigby a single piece of advice that the show treats with unusual weight. The advice is not about growing up. The advice is about respect, about the difference between being loud and being someone whose presence other people register. The advice does not change Rigby's behavior much. He still loses his temper. He still pronounces words his own way. He still escalates situations. But after that scene, the show treats him slightly differently. The camera holds on him a fraction of a second longer. The other characters give him a fraction more space. The advice did not turn him into an adult. The advice was the show acknowledging, on the record, that the 8-year-old 8-year-old in the raccoon body is a real person and deserves to be respected as one. That is what the show is doing with Rigby. It is respecting the 8-year-old. It is putting the 8-year-old in a long-form animated comedy on a major network and letting him be the second lead and not making him grow out of it. That is rare. That is, in animation, aimed at older audiences, almost unprecedented. The default move with a character like Rigby is the redemption arc. Regular Show declines the redemption arc and treats the character as already complete, in the form he already has on the day the show begins. The trampoline never gets replaced with a bed. That is not an oversight. That is a thesis statement. If Mordecai is the man holding the freeze, and Rigby is the kid who chose to stay, the third man in the building has a different problem entirely. He is the one who has to manage them. He is the one who has to clock them in every morning, run the operation, keep the park functioning, and pretend he is fine while doing it. He is the only adult in the room, and the show, very quietly, has been asking the same question about him for 8 seasons. Why is he so angry, and what is he angry at? Benson is a gumball machine. That is a sentence the show asks you to take as given and move past. But it is, when you stop to think about it, an extraordinary design choice. Most of the cast of Regular Show is some kind of recognizable creature in a recognizable shape. Mordecai is a bird. Rigby is a raccoon. Skips is a yeti. Pops is a man with a candy head. Muscle Man is a man who is green. High Five Ghost is a ghost. These are all characters whose visual concept can be summarized in one phrase. Benson is a gumball machine. He has arms. He has legs. His head is a clear glass dome filled with red and yellow gumballs that change color with his mood. He is the boss. The show asks you, repeatedly, to take this character seriously as a man. The theory takes the show up on the offer. Benson is the show's tragic hero. He is the only character in the cast who has fully accepted the responsibilities of adulthood. And the cost of that acceptance is that he is alone, and that he cannot rest, and that his job is to manage 2 people who refuse to do either thing. The show gives you small windows onto Benson's life outside the park. He plays the drums. He has played the drums for a long time. He had, at some point, a band that the show references in passing across the seasons. Never with full disclosure of what happened to it. Never with closure. The band is the version of Benson that almost happened. The version that was going to be a touring drummer. The version that did not become the manager of a public park. He has, at points across the show, romantic interests. Brief ones. Most of them do not last. The show does not punish him for this. The show simply notes that the kind of life Benson has organized for himself, the life of someone who is responsible, on call, perpetually in charge, does not leave a lot of room for another person to fit comfortably inside it. Here is the theory. Benson is grieving someone the show never directly shows you. The grief is the engine of the entire character. Every time he yells at Mordecai and Rigby, and he yells at them, on average, more than once an episode for 8 years, he is yelling at people who have not yet experienced the loss he has already experienced. The yelling is not anger at them. The yelling is the sound of a man who knows what is coming for them and cannot make them prepare. There is a small scene midway through the show's run where Benson is alone in his apartment. The scene is not central to the episode. The episode is doing something else. But the camera lingers on Benson alone in a way it lingers on no other character. The apartment is clean. The apartment is small. There is, on the surface, nothing dramatic about it. The smallness is the drama. A man who runs an entire operation has come home to a single quiet room, and the camera notices, and the show moves on without comment, and the moment stays with you for the rest of the season. Watch the way Benson talks to Pops. Benson, who yells at everyone, who runs the entire operation on rage, never raises his voice at Pops. Not once across the 8 seasons. The voice softens. The vocabulary changes. The patience comes from somewhere Benson has not had to use it for anyone else. The theory says the patience for Pops is residual. That Benson is using it on Pops because somewhere in his past, there was someone who needed that exact patience and did not get it. And Benson has decided that for the rest of his life, when someone needs that voice, he will use it. Pops gets to be the someone. The show does not explain why. It does not need to. The yelling at Mordecai and Rigby is the surface read on Benson. The theory is that the yelling is misdirected love. They remind him of something. They remind him of who he was before the loss. They are doing what he used to do, postponing the rest of their lives, treating the world as something they can show up to without consequence, behaving as if there is more time. There is more time. There always is, until there is not. Benson knows what the absence of more time looks like. They do not. The yelling is the impossible attempt to make them know it without telling them. The show does not make this explicit. The show is not interested in giving Benson a tragic backstory monologue. The show prefers, with this character as with the others, to make you do the work, to put the pieces in front of you and let you assemble them. The piece you assemble is a man who is, beneath the manager exterior, a person in long-term grief. The yelling is the surface of the grief. The yelling is what grief sounds like when it has had years to organize itself into a daily routine. There is a story arc in one of the later seasons where Benson is forced, briefly, to be vulnerable. He is forced to admit, in front of the people he manages, that he is not just the role he plays. He is a person. He has wants. He has, in the past, had a life that did not consist entirely of trying to keep 2 raccoons and a blue jay employed. The arc is short. The show pulls back from it before the vulnerability becomes the new status quo. By the next episode, he is yelling again. The theory says this pullback is not the show being cowardly. The pullback is the show recognizing that grief does not work that way. You do not solve it by admitting it once. You admit it once, and then you go back to the morning shift. Because the morning shift is what you have, and the morning shift is what is available to you, and the morning shift is the only place the grief is bearable. Benson goes back to yelling because yelling is the form his survival takes. The show ends with Benson still at the park, after all the cosmic events, after the trip to space, after the cast scatters. Benson is still there, running the same operation, with whatever new staff fills in. He does not get a final breakthrough. He does not get a relationship that solves him. He gets the job. The job is the relationship. The job is what he has built around the place where the loss is. This is the show's most adult theory. The character who is most fully an adult is the one who is most fully alone. Adulthood, the show suggests through Benson, is not the achievement everyone thinks it is. Adulthood is the agreement to absorb a set of losses that you do not get to share with anyone, in exchange for the right to be the person who keeps the operation running. The yelling is the cost of admission. If you watch the show closely, you can see Mordecai, in the final season, beginning to move toward Benson's emotional position. The voice modulates slightly. The patience extends slightly. He starts, on rare occasions, to take responsibility for things that have gone wrong without first looking for someone else to blame. The show does not announce this development. It is just there. Mordecai is becoming, in inches, a person who could one day run a park. That is one of the show's quietest hopes for him. Not that he becomes a great artist. Not that he ends up with the right woman. That he becomes, eventually, the kind of man who could be Benson. A person who has absorbed his own losses without making them anyone else's problem. Who shows up to work. Who uses his voice on the people who need it most. The painting career at the end is the visible answer. The Benson trajectory is the invisible one running underneath. The show wanted both for him. The gumball head changes color when Benson is angry. It also changes color when he is in love. It changes for many emotions. The show, very early on, makes you accustomed to reading his interior state through the gumballs. By the time you have watched several seasons, you do not need the gumballs to read him anymore. You read him through the voice. The gumballs become a backup system. The voice tells you everything. When Benson is alone, the gumballs are the only thing the show has to show you what he is feeling. He sits in the apartment. The gumballs go through colors the show does not name. The camera does not narrate. The colors do their work. Then he gets up and goes to bed, and the next morning he is at the park again, yelling at Mordecai and Rigby for sleeping on the job. The theory does not require you to weep for Benson. The theory just requires you to notice that the show built him. That every yelling joke is layered on top of something the show is taking very seriously underneath. That the gumball machine is, somehow, in the corpus of animated television, one of the most fully realized portraits of male loneliness anybody has put on screen. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. There is a fourth character in the park house. He is older than the others. He is taller. He carries a cane he does not need. He speaks in a high voice with a mid-Atlantic accent that has no other source on the show. And for most of the 8 seasons, the show treats him as a comic figure, the kindly, naive elder gentleman whose primary mode is delight at the small things. That treatment is a setup. The show is hiding the most important character on the show in plain sight, dressed as comic relief, for years. And when the show finally takes the costume off, in the final season, it asks you to read the entire run again with new information. Pops Maillard is a man with a lollipop for a head. The body is human-shaped. The head is a perfect spherical lollipop, white and red, with the candy body of his face etched into the surface. He wears a top hat. He wears a coat. He carries a cane. He lives at the park house, in a room at the top of the stairs, surrounded by furniture that looks like it predates the rest of the house by decades. He says the words, "good show," approximately once an episode. He delights in birds, in food, in clouds, in the small business of an ordinary day. For 7 seasons, the show treats Pops as exactly what he appears to be: a gentleman, a naive elder, a figure of childlike wonder placed inside an environment of cosmic chaos to provide reactions. A character who is, by design, slightly too kind to be real. Then the show, in its final season, breaks the costume. Pops is not human. Pops is not even from this dimension. Pops is one of 2 cosmic twins who were created in the depths of space at the beginning of time to balance each other. There is, somewhere in the universe, an opposite of Pops, an anti-Pops. The 2 of them are forces. They have been forces for an unimaginably long time. The conflict between them is the largest conflict in the universe. And the show has been not telling you this for 7 seasons, because the show has been letting you watch Pops eat ice cream. Here is the theory. The show is, structurally, a Christ narrative. It is not metaphor. It is a Christ narrative dressed as a slacker comedy. The figure who walks among the ordinary park employees is, in fact, a god, and the show withholds this from you for the same reason most people who meet a god in a parable do not recognize them. They do not look like a god. They look like a kindly old man with a candy head. The conventional read on Pops is that he is the show's heart, the character who reminds the others of what is good, the figure whose innocence is contagious enough that even Mordecai and Rigby behave better around him. That read is correct as far as it goes. The theory adds a layer. Pops is not just kind. Pops is choosing to be kind in the face of complete cosmic knowledge. The naivete is not innocence. The naivete is decision. He is, every episode, every day, choosing to be a person who delights in birds rather than a person who is fighting his cosmic opposite for the fate of reality, until the show needs him not to choose anymore. The reveal in the final season recasts every Pop scene that came before. The episode where he learns to drive. The episode where he tries to fit in at a country club. The episode where he hosts a small tea party. None of these are random. Each of them is a record of a god voluntarily participating in ordinary life, because ordinary life is what he has decided to want. The show is, retroactively, an essay about what it would mean for a being with infinite power to choose to live small, to choose the park, to choose the friends, to choose the lollipop instead of the universe. There is a moment at the end of the show's actual climax, where Pops faces his cosmic opposite directly. The moment is staged with all the gravity the show can muster. There is no comedy in it. The voice that has been high and warm for 8 seasons drops slightly. The face that has smiled at every meal becomes still. He chooses, in this moment, to embrace the conflict directly. He does not run from it. He does not delegate it. He absorbs it. The cost is total. Pops, to balance the cosmic equation, sacrifices himself. The show ends a major character. It ends the character who was, structurally, the show's emotional center. It ends the character whose presence in the park house was the thing that made the park house feel like a home. The theory says this is not a tragic ending. The theory says this is the only ending the character was ever going to have, and the entire show was the long preparation for it. Pops was a god the whole time. Gods, in this kind of narrative, do one thing. They die for the people around them. The show was, from the first episode, a narrative pointing at this final scene, and the craft of the construction is that it hid the pointing. You watched Pops eat ice cream for 7 years. You laughed at his accent. You found him charming. And then the show told you, in the 8th year, that the ice cream and the accent and the charming were the choices of a being who knew exactly what was coming for him, and chose to spend his last available time enjoying small things in good company. Watch how the show stages his last full day. Watch what he chooses to do. He does not give a long speech. He does not attempt to teach the others everything they need to know without him. He spends the day with them. He plays. He eats. He laughs. He treats the day like a day. The theory says this is the most theologically serious thing the show ever does. The god, on his last day, behaves exactly like he behaved on every previous day, because the previous days were already the practice. He had been preparing for this day for 8 seasons. The preparation was the joy itself. What this means for the rest of the show is that the entire show is a parable about presence, about what it means for a powerful being to decide, voluntarily, to be small, about what kindness looks like when kindness is a choice made in full knowledge. The other characters around Pops, Benson with his grief, Mordecai with his freeze, Rigby with his frozen childhood, are all, in their own ways, refusing to be present in their own lives. Pops, who has every reason in the universe to be elsewhere, is the only one who is fully present in his. That is the lesson the show is offering through him, not stated, not preached, not delivered as a moral, simply enacted, episode after episode, for years, until the final moment makes you go back and see what you were watching the whole time. The show does not tell you Pops is a god until late. But the show does, very early on, tell you something else about him that the theory says is the actual key. Pops is, despite his innocence, the only character in the cast who can fight. He is, throughout the show's run, occasionally and unexpectedly capable of feats of physical and metaphysical power that the other characters cannot match. Most of the time, he does not. The show plays it as a quirk, the cane, the high voice, the candy head, the man who, for one episode, can suddenly do something nobody can explain. The theory says these are not quirks. These are leaks. These are the moments when the god leaks through the costume. Pops is not always able to keep the disguise on. Sometimes the disguise slips. Sometimes the universe-shaping power reaches the surface, briefly, and the cast does not have the vocabulary to recognize what they are looking at. By the time the final season makes the disguise impossible to maintain, the leaks have happened often enough that the reveal does not feel like a retcon. It feels like a confirmation. The show was telling you the entire time. You just did not know what you were being told. There is one more layer to the theory: the relationship between Pops and Mr. Maillard. Mr. Maillard is the owner of the park. He is, in the show's lore, Pops' father. He is also a lollipop man of an older variety. He is taciturn. He is gruff. He is, in many of his appearances, the only adult in any room, including rooms that contain Benson. The relationship between the two of them is, on the surface, a father and son comedy beat. The theory says the relationship is the entire universe. Mr. Maillard, in this read, is the only being who knows what Pops is from the start. He is the only one who has been there since before. He is the show's hidden god behind the gods. And the dynamic between them, the way Pops, even as a cosmic being, shrinks slightly when his father is in the room, is the show's funniest theology. Even gods have fathers. Even gods are someone's son. The show does not make this dynamic the focus. The show puts it in the background and lets you find it. The theory is that finding it changes everything. The cosmic war at the end of the show is not just a cosmic war. It is a son going out to the front lines while the father stays home. It is the oldest story. When Pops is gone, the park does not end. The show does not end with the park ending. The cast continues. The work continues. Mordecai grows up off screen. Rigby gets married. Eileen gets a doctorate. Benson keeps yelling at the new staff. Skips keeps being immortal in the back room. The world continues without the god in it. That is also part of the theory. That is the most honest part. The theory says, yes, there was a god, and yes, he was kind, and yes, he is gone, and yes, the world continues, and yes, you keep going to work in the morning. That is the show's final theological position. The god was here. The god is gone. The work continues. That is, somehow, in a slacker comedy about two friends at a park, one of the most tender religious arguments anyone has put on television. And the show let you watch it as a comedy for 7 years, before telling you what it had been doing the whole time. The cosmic figure has a counterpart in the park house. Older, quieter, not a god, not a child, not a man, something else. A being who has been alive long enough that the holding pattern Mordecai is afraid of is the longest holding pattern any character on the show has experienced, by a margin of several centuries. And the question the show asks about him is whether immortality is the answer to the freeze, or whether it is the freeze taken to its limit. Skips is a Yeti who only travels on foot and only travels by skipping. Both feet hop in unison. He does not walk. He does not run. he skips. The show plays this as a recurring visual joke for 8 seasons. The joke is also a tell. Skips moves the way a person moves when they have stopped accelerating in any direction. The body cannot run. The body is locked into a single gait that has not varied in centuries. The official lore on Skips is that he is hundreds of years old. He has been at the park for an indeterminate length of time, doing maintenance work, fixing the things the others break, providing the occasional cosmic insight. He lives in a small workshop on the property. He is unflappable. He is the most reliable character on the show. He was not always called Skips. There is an episode the show gives him in the middle of its run that is, structurally, the most dramatic single episode in the entire series, and the show does not flag it. It plays it as a routine episode. In it, Skips' origin is revealed. Skips was once called Walks. He was a young Yeti. He fell in love with a woman named Mona. Mona died young. The death was sudden and final and did not have a moral attached to it. Walks, in his grief, was given the option of immortality on the condition that he change. He took the immortality. He changed his name. He stopped walking. He started skipping. He has been skipping ever since. Here is the theory. Skips is the version of Mordecai who never gets out of the holding pattern. The Yeti is the freeze taken to its terminal endpoint. Walks loved Mona. Walks lost Mona. Walks could not move forward through the loss. The universe, in its cosmic generosity, gave Walks the option to never move forward. He took it. He is still not moving forward. He has been not moving forward for centuries. The skipping is the body refusing to walk because walking would be the direction Mona went, and he cannot follow. This is the most insane theory in the show because the show treats it as a touching origin story and does not point at the implication. The implication is that Skips is not wise. Skips is wounded. Skips is a being who chose stasis over grief, and who has been managing the consequences of that choice for so long that the management looks, to outsiders, like wisdom. He has the experience of centuries because he has refused, for centuries, to live the years he was given to live. Watch how he interacts with the cast. He is patient with them. He helps them. He gives advice. The advice is good, but notice the topic of the advice. The advice is almost always about what they should not do, about the trap they are about to fall into, about the warning they are about to ignore. Skips has been issuing warnings for centuries. He is uniquely qualified to issue them. He fell into the trap himself. He never climbed out. He cannot warn them about climbing out because he has not done it. He can only warn them about falling in. The theory recasts every Skip scene. The unflappable expression is not equanimity. It is exhaustion. The slow voice is not wisdom. It is the speaking voice of a person who has not had a new emotion in a long time. The skipping is not a quirk. The skipping is a memorial. Mona is in every step. The episode that reveals this is staged in flashback. The flashback shows the young Yeti who walked. The flashback shows the woman he loved. The flashback shows her death and his grief. And then the flashback shows the moment he took the deal. The deal was offered by a small group of beings who told him the price. The price was movement. They did not say it that way. They used different language, but the price was movement. Walks would no longer walk. He would skip. He would skip, and he would not die, and he would not age, and he would not move forward in the direction Mona went. Here's the part the show withholds. The deal can be undone. The show implies, without ever stating, that any time Skips chose to walk again, he could. The cost of walking would be eventual death. He has, for centuries, declined to take the cost. The choice he made on the day Mona died is renewed every morning. He wakes up and chooses to skip rather than walk. The grief is not in the past. The grief is the active maintenance that keeps the immortality functional. What this means for the rest of the cast is that Skips is, structurally, a warning. Mordecai is the man in the early stage of the freeze. Rigby is the kid who chose not to grow up. Benson is the adult who absorbed his loss. Pops is the god who chose presence. Skips is what happens when none of those work, when the loss is too big, when the freeze becomes permanent. When the answer to grief is not to live through it, but to opt out of the body's normal relationship with time. The show does not condemn him for this. The show is not a parable that shames its character. The show simply lets you see the cost. Skips is alone. Skips has been alone for centuries. Skips will be alone after the show ends. The friendships with the park employees are real, and they are inadequate. Mordecai will leave the park eventually. Rigby will leave the park eventually. Pops is gone. Benson will retire. Skips will will still be at the park. The park is the only place that has not changed since Skips made the deal. The park is, in some way, the deal. There is a quiet moment earlier than the origin episode where Skips, alone, performs a small ritual at the workshop. The ritual is private. The camera catches it briefly. He does not know he is being watched. The ritual is small. He places his hand on a particular wall. He pauses. He moves on. The first time you watch the show, you have no context for the moment. After the origin episode, the moment becomes one of the most loaded images in the entire series. He is touching something Mona once touched. He is verifying she was real. He has been doing this every day for hundreds of years. Nobody has ever asked him about it. He has never told anyone. The most reliable character on the show, the one who fixes everything, who gives advice, who never panics, has been performing a private grief ritual in his workshop every day for centuries. The show shows it to you for 2 seconds. Then it cuts away. The theory becomes a question by the end. Is Skips the show's wisest character or its most cautionary one? The show declines to answer. The show lets him be both at the same time. He gives the cast genuinely good advice. He keeps them alive. He keeps the park functioning. He is, by every available measure, the reason any of this works. And he is also, by his own description, a being who paid for his immortality with the right to ever heal. The cast does not know this. The cast cannot know this. Mordecai, who is on the front edge of his own freeze, does not look at Skips and see what he might become. He looks at Skips and sees an older friend who knows things. Rigby does not look at Skips and see the long-term cost of refusal. He looks at Skips and sees a guy who can fix the cart when it breaks. The cast cannot read Skips properly because the cast is not old enough yet. The show lets the audience read him. The show gives the audience the data and trusts the audience to put it together. By the final season, Skips is still skipping. The cosmic war comes and goes. The park is launched into space and recovered. Mordecai grows up off-screen. Rigby gets married. Pops sacrifices himself. The world rearranges itself completely. And in the workshop, in the small private moments the camera occasionally catches, Skips puts his hand on the wall. He pauses. He moves on. The ritual has not changed. The grief has not changed. The Yeti is still the same age he was the day Mona died. He will be the same age forever. That is the show's hardest theory about love. Some losses do not heal. Some people, when they encounter the loss, choose not to heal. The not healing is not weakness. It is a choice that requires its own kind of courage to maintain across centuries. Skips has that courage. The show respects it. The show does not ask him to walk again. The show simply lets him skip, episode after episode, decade after decade, until the show ends and he is still skipping, somewhere, off camera. In the ongoing world, the show implies continues after the credits. That is the fifth theory. The Yeti is the warning. The Yeti is also the keeper. Both things are true. If Skips is grief preserved across centuries, the next character on the show is grief processed across one season. Fast, loud, public, masked behind the worst running gag in the entire series. The audience laughs at him for years. The show is doing something else with him underneath. By the time the show is done, the joke has reorganized itself into a portrait of a man who is the only character in the cast who has fully faced what loss looks like in real time, and who has decided, in response, to never stop being loud. Muscle Man is a green humanoid in the body of an early 20s park employee, with a body shape that the show signals through a single, unmistakable visual cue. He has, throughout the show's run, the catchphrase that has come to define him in the popular imagination of the show. You know who else? Followed by some innocuous claim, followed by, my mom. The joke is that he, a young man, repeatedly invokes his mother in a way that suggests an inappropriate level of romantic involvement. The joke is structurally ridiculous. The joke is also, after a certain point in the show, a deflection. His real name is Mitch Sorenstein. The show drops this casually, as if it does not matter. The casualness is a tell. The character almost never goes by the real name. The real name is the character's actual identity, hidden under the broad nickname and the broad joke. The man inside the costume is named. The man on the surface is a punchline. Here's the theory. The my mom joke is not what it appears to be. The my mom joke is the only way the character has of mentioning his family in a context that does not let anybody around him take the family seriously. He is making the family unspeakable on purpose by speaking it incorrectly. Every time he says my mom, he is not pointing at his mother. He is pointing at the absence of his father. The mother is the only only parent left to mention. The way to mention her is to overdo it so badly that nobody asks about the other one. His father was a wrestler called the Hammer. The show introduces this in an episode that, structurally, is one of the most emotionally serious episodes in the entire series. The Hammer is a tough man, a loud man, a man who has shaped his son's entire personality. And in that episode, the father dies. On screen. The show does not soften it. The show does not skip past it. The death is sudden and final, and it happens in front of the son, and the show holds on the son's face for what feels, in animation time, like an eternity. The episode does something the show has not done before, and rarely does after. It lets a character grieve in real time. Muscle Man, the loud one, the broad one, the Joker, breaks. The voice cracks. The body shakes. The face does something the face has never done before. The show stays on it. The show does not cut to relief. The show does not deflect into a joke. The show acknowledges, for the only time in the run, that the green character with the catchphrase has been a person all along. After that episode, the catchphrase comes back. The my mom jokes come back. The bro behavior comes back. Everything that defined the character is returned to factory settings. And the theory says that return is not a regression. The return is an act of choice. The character has been to the place where the costume cannot hold. He has come back from it. He has decided that the costume is what he wants to wear. The costume is, after the loss, a memorial as much as a habit. The Hammer raised a son who would joke. The son, after the father's death, keeps joking. The jokes are, in a way the show does not name out loud, an act of fidelity. Watch how he behaves around his own friends from this point forward. He still calls them bro. He still leans into the broad humor. But there is a quality of tenderness around him that the early seasons do not have. He notices things. He shows up for people. When his closest friend, High Five Ghost, has any kind of small emotional moment, Muscle Man is there for it without making it a joke. The fact that Muscle Man does not make a joke about it is the entire point. He has learned what the absence of a joke means. He has, since the day his father died, been able to read silence as a kind of speech. The show does not draw attention to this. The show simply lets him be present. The man who is loudest about everything is, in the moments that matter, the most reliable witness for the people he loves. There is a long-running storyline across the show about Muscle Man's relationship with a woman named Starla. Starla is, on the surface, also a broad joke. She matches him. She speaks the way he speaks. She loves him in the way he is. The theory says Starla is the first person in his life since the Hammer who has accepted the costume as the man. She does not ask him to grow out of the catchphrases. She does not require him to speak in a more polished register. She loves Mitch Sorenstein as Muscle Man, and the agreement between them is the relationship's entire foundation. He marries her. The show, in its later seasons, gives him a wedding that is, in tone, completely true to who he is. There is no moment where the loud man becomes quiet for his wedding day. There is no moment where the costume comes off. He gets married in costume because the costume is who he is, and the woman who is marrying him knows it. What this character is doing in the show, structurally, is providing a third option in the developmental landscape the show is mapping. Mordecai is frozen and waiting to thaw. Rigby is the kid who chose not to grow up. Benson is the adult absorbing his loss. Pops is the God-choosing presence. Skips is the immortal who paid for his stasis. Muscle Man is the man who has faced loss in real time and who has decided, on the other side of it, to keep being himself. The continuity is the message. He did not transform after his father died. He continued. The continuation is the form his grief takes. This is, in a way, the show does not make explicit, a deeply religious idea. The idea that loss does not require transformation. The idea that you can lose the most important person in your life and remain, structurally, the person you were. That fidelity to who you were when they were alive is its own kind of mourning. That changing too much in response to a death would be, in some way, a betrayal. Muscle Man's theory of grief is not stated. It is enacted. He keeps the catchphrase. He keeps the bro voice. He keeps the inappropriate jokes about his mother that are, the theory says, secretly about his father. He keeps everything. The keeping is the work. There is a quiet moment late in the show where Muscle Man, alone for a beat, looks at a photograph. The show does not tell you what is in the photograph. You can guess. You do not need to be told. The look is brief. The next moment, he is back to the catchphrase. The look does not change anything about him. It is just a moment that the show knows is happening, that he knows is happening, that nobody else in the cast sees, and that the audience is allowed, briefly, to witness. That is the second most loaded image in the entire show. Skips with his hand on the workshop wall is the most loaded. Muscle Man with the photograph is the second. The two of them are the only characters in the cast carrying losses they have not put down. Skips' choice was to stop time. Muscle Man's choice was to keep going at full volume. The show is honest about both. The catchphrase is funny. The catchphrase is also load-bearing. Every time he says, "my mom," in the later seasons, somewhere in the back of the writer's room, somebody knew what they were not saying. The audience laughed. The audience was supposed to laugh. The laugh was the cover. By the end of the show, Muscle Man has the most stable life of any of the leads. He is married. He is a father. He has, somewhere along the way, become a person who hosts other people in his home. The catchphrase is still there. The bro voice is still there. The costume has not come off. He has, against the odds the early seasons set up, become the picture of an adult who never stopped being who he was. That is the sixth theory. The man who looked, for the first 3 seasons, like the show's most disposable character is. By the time the show ends, the only character in the cast who has fully done the work of losing somebody and still being, on the other side of the loss, the man he was. The show buried that achievement under the worst running gag in the series so that you would have to find it yourself. The finding is the point. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The man who is Muscle Man's closest friend, who has been there for every catchphrase, who has high-fived him 1,000 times across the show, is the smallest character in the cast. He is also, on a literal level, the only one who is dead. The show does not treat his death as the central fact of his existence. It treats him as a presence. The theory takes the show at its word and asks why. High Five Ghost is a small, white ghost. He hovers slightly above the ground. He has a single hand, raised palm up above his head, perpetually positioned for a high five. His voice is high. His name is Fives. He is, by every standard the show establishes, a deceased entity. The show never explains how he died. The show never establishes how old he was when he died. The show never explores it. The show simply presents him as alive, in the show's sense of alive, and lets you assemble the rest yourself. The official lore on High Five Ghost is thin. He is Muscle Man's best friend. He works at the park. He is generally happy. He has, at various points, his own romantic interests and his own minor storylines. He gets along with everyone. He is, by quiet consensus among the cast, the easiest person in the building to be around. Here is the theory. High Five Ghost is the show's argument that there is a piece available on the other side of what most characters fear. He is the only character in the cast who has been through the thing every other character is, in some way, dreading. The freeze that Mordecai is afraid of. The growing up that Rigby refuses. The losses that Benson, Skips, and Muscle Man are processing. High Five Ghost has gone through the worst of it. He is dead. And he is, by every available measurement, the most contented character in the show. The contentment is structural. High Five Ghost does not yell. High Five Ghost does not panic. High Five Ghost does not get involved in the cosmic stakes the way Mordecai and Rigby do. He shows up. He does the work. He goes home. He has friendships. He has, over the course of the show, a long-term relationship with another small ghost. He gets married. He has a son. The son is also a ghost. The family unit is stable. The theory says the contentment is what is available on the other side. High Five Ghost has stopped being afraid because he has stopped having anything left to be afraid of. He has been through the stage Mordecai is dreading. He has been through the loss Skips is preserving. He has been through whatever was waiting on the other side of everything. And the show is telling you that what is on the other side is not a void. It is a small, stable life with people you love. It is the same life. It is just that you have stopped needing to perform anymore. This is structurally the most generous theological idea the show offers. Pops is a god who chooses to live small. High Five Ghost is what happens when an ordinary person dies and discovers that the small life is what survives. The two of them are bookending the same argument. The argument is that the meaningful unit is the small one, the friendship, the home, the day, not the cosmic, not the legacy, the day. Watch how High Five Ghost carries himself across the show. He never tries to be larger than he is. He never demands more space than he has. The hand is always raised for the high five, but the hand does not chase you. You either come to it or you do not. The character has stopped needing the high five to be returned. The willingness is the offering. Whether anyone takes it is no longer the point. This is what the cast around him cannot do. Mordecai needs his offers to be returned. Rigby needs his jokes to land. Benson needs his orders to be followed. Muscle Man needs his bro to laugh. High Five Ghost has stopped needing. The hand is up. If you high-five it, fine. If you do not, fine. The piece is not contingent on the response. Where the show pushes hardest into this theory is in the small storylines about High Five Ghost's family. His son is born. The son is an immediate, complete, fully formed presence. The show treats the son's existence as a fact, not as a development. The family is small and quiet and works. High Five Ghost, who has nothing in his life that he needs to grow toward, is, by the end of the show's run, somebody's father. He does it without drama. He does it without spectacle. He does it without building any kind of arc around it. He is just, suddenly, the kind of character who has a son. Compare this to Mordecai's life trajectory. Mordecai needs 8 seasons of the show to even begin pointing at the kind of life High Five Ghost is already living from episode 1. The bird needs the freeze to thaw, the relationships to fail, the cosmic stakes to resolve, the world to end and rebuild itself, the entire scaffolding of plot to fall away. High Five Ghost did not need any of that. The ghost just lives. The theory says this is the key. The show is, in its quietest moments, telling you that the path to the kind of life High Five Ghost has does not have to go through a cosmic war. You can have it now. You can have it before you die even. The character is dead, in the show's literal sense, but his deadness is not the prerequisite for his peace. His peace is just available. The show is using the ghost form as a metaphor for what people sometimes find on the other side of crisis, and what some people, mysteriously, have access to without ever needing the crisis at all. The character does not give speeches. The character does not provide moral lessons. The character does not, in any episode, sit down with Mordecai and explain what the bird is missing. The way High Five Ghost teaches is by being. He shows up to work. He goes home. He raises his son. He stays married. He raises his hand for the high five. He does not chase the cast. The cast does not learn from him because the cast does not know there is something to learn. That is, in a way, the saddest part of the show. The character with the most peace is the easiest to overlook. The bird is at the kitchen counter at 3 a.m. eating cereal. The ghost is, at the same moment, at home with his wife and his son, asleep. Mordecai will spend years getting to where High Five Ghost already is. The show does not make this comparison out loud. The show puts the two of them in the same building and lets you decide whether you have noticed. By the end of the show, High Five Ghost is exactly the same character he was at the beginning. The hand is up. The family is fine. The friendships are intact. He is the only character whose arc, from first appearance to last, requires no transformation, because the transformation already happened before the show began, in whatever event it was that made him a ghost in the first place. That is the 7th theory. The smallest character on the show is the one who has already been to the destination everyone else is afraid of. The destination, it turns out, is fine. It is small. It is full of love. It is enough. The show puts him in the background of every group shot and lets him be the answer the show does not announce. The next character is not in the park house. She has not been in the park house in years. She does not work at the park. She does not, by the end of the show, even live in the same town. She is, more than any other character on the show, the version of the future that left without waiting. And the show keeps glancing back at her every season, even after she is gone, because she is the only person in the cast who refused to be held. Margaret is a Robin in her early 20s. She works at a coffee shop near the park for the first several seasons of the show. She is Mordecai's first long-running romantic interest. She is, in the show's economy of body language and voice acting, presented as someone slightly more poised than the park crew, slightly more professionally minded, slightly older in spirit, even though she is roughly the same age as the leads. She is going to be a journalist. The show mentions this casually. She is in school. She is working towards something. The work is not glamorized. The work is just there. While Mordecai and Rigby are spending their 20s at the park job, Margaret is, on the side of the same town, building a life that is going to take her elsewhere. Here is the theory. Margaret is the future, arriving early in the body of a young woman who has decided that the holding pattern is something she has no interest in joining. Mordecai falls in love with her because she represents what he is afraid of and what he wants at the same time. Somebody who has the developmental momentum he is missing. The relationship between them is structurally impossible because the relationship is, on her side, the relationship of a person who is going somewhere, and on his side, the relationship of a person who is afraid of going anywhere. The show is honest about this. Margaret is not cruel. Margaret is not disinterested. Margaret cares about Mordecai. The show makes the care visible. But Margaret is also someone who, when offered the chance to take a step toward her future, takes the step. She does not delay it for the relationship. She does not subordinate her trajectory to his. The relationship between them ends not because either of them is bad, but because the relationship would require one of them to slow down to the speed of the other. And Margaret has decided not to slow down, and Mordecai has decided not to speed up. This is unusual television. Most shows about young men with romantic interests treat the woman as a thing to win, lose, or decide about. Margaret is treated as a person whose own trajectory is the actual story. She has agency. She has plans. She has a future that is not contingent on the bird. The show, every time it returns to her in the context of the life she has been building since the last time you saw her. She has moved. She has changed jobs. She has new friends. She has, in some episodes, a new partner. The show does not pause her between her appearances. She lives a life when the camera is not on her. This is what makes her, structurally, the most painful character for Mordecai. Every time she returns, she is further along. The gap between them is not closing. The gap is widening. By the time the show is in its later seasons, Margaret is somewhere Mordecai cannot follow without becoming a different person. The show is honest about the cost of the becoming. Mordecai cannot become her shape. He is the shape he is. The relationship was always going to fail because the relationship was, in some sense, a relationship between Mordecai and the future itself. And the future does not stay still long enough to be in a relationship with anyone. Watch the way the show stages her appearances in the later seasons. Each time she comes back, she has more competence. The competence is not performed. It is shown through small things. The way she handles a phone call, the way she makes a decision, the way she does not seem rattled by things that would have rattled her 2 seasons earlier. The show is documenting her growth in inches, even though she is no longer a primary character. The show respects her enough to keep her growing off screen and to show you the growth when she returns. The theory says Margaret is the show's argument that some people just do not get held. Some people, by temperament or by luck or by some quality the show does not name, simply do not enter the holding pattern that catches Mordecai and Rigby. They graduate from the small life on schedule. They take the job. They move to the city. They begin the career. They build the relationships. They go through their 20s at the speed everyone else's 20s are supposed to be going. The show is not pretending this is easy. The show is just saying that for some people it is possible, and for Mordecai it is not, and Margaret is the proof. The proof is painful for Mordecai because it shows him that the freeze is not universal. He cannot tell himself that everyone his age is in the same boat. He has the data in his own life, in the form of a woman he loved, that the boat is not universal. Some people are already on the shore. He is, for reasons he cannot fully articulate, still in the boat. The boat is the show. By the end of the show, Margaret is fully gone. She has, in the timeline implied by the finale, become a journalist. She has the career. She has the life. She is no longer in the orbit of the park. The show does not give her a tearful farewell. The show simply notes that she is elsewhere, and that elsewhere is where she always was going to be, and that the bird is going to grow up at his own pace, in his own way, on his own timeline. This is the show's final position on Margaret. She was not lost. She was not stolen. She was not the one who got away. She was, in fact, the one who never could have been kept. The relationship between Mordecai and Margaret was the relationship between Mordecai and the speed of his own life. He was not ready for that speed. The relationship had to end so he could be free to grow at the speed he could actually grow at, which was, the show suggests, much slower than the speed Margaret was moving. The 8th theory is that Margaret is what real growth looks like. The show shows you a character who is going through her 20s without resistance. The show makes that character a love interest. The show then makes the impossibility of the relationship the point. The point is that Mordecai cannot be in a relationship with the speed at which adulthood actually happens. He has to find his own slower speed. The slower speed is the show. In the final episode's flash forward, Mordecai is older. He is married. He is a painter. He has a family. He is, in some way, a version of where Margaret already was years before. He got there too. He just got there on a longer route. Margaret is not jealous. Margaret is not bitter. Margaret is, in the implied off-screen timeline, glad. She always wanted him to make it. She just could not wait. That is who she was the entire time. The friend who was already where you were trying to go. The friend you had to stop dating in order to eventually become. If Margaret is the future Mordecai cannot follow, the second long-running romantic interest is the relationship that proves nothing about him has changed. She is, in some ways, the same trap with different weather. The show puts her in his life precisely so you can watch him fail at the same lesson again, in a slightly different shape, and recognize that the freeze has not budged. CJ is a cloud. Her body is shaped like a young woman, but the body is made of cloud. Her face is the face of the cloud. Her hair is shaped like a cloud. She has, when she is calm, the body of a small, fluffy cumulus, and when she is upset, the body of a storm. The animation reads her interior weather through the literal weather of her form. The show is not subtle about this metaphor. The show wants you to see it. CJ enters Mordecai's life after Margaret has left it. She is, in temperament, more aligned with Mordecai's actual energy than Margaret was. She is into the same small things. She does not have a journalism career on the horizon. She is happy doing the activities the park crew does. She fits the ecosystem. The relationship between her and Mordecai is, on the surface, easier than the Margaret relationship. The friction is lower. The fit is closer. Here is the theory. CJ is the trap Mordecai never recognized. He thought the lesson of Margaret was that he had been with someone too far ahead of him. He thought the answer was to find someone who was at his level. CJ is at his level. The relationship still fails. It fails not because of incompatibility, but because the freeze in him is not about the speed of the partner. The freeze is in him. The freeze travels. He brings it to every relationship. The show stages this with precision. CJ, a character whose physical form literally changes shape with her emotions, is paired with Mordecai, a character who consistently fails to read other people's emotions until the emotions have become unmistakable. The pairing is structurally a setup for failure. Every time CJ shifts shape, the show is telling Mordecai what is happening inside her. Every time he misses the signal, the show is telling you that he is not capable of reading the signal yet. The misses accumulate. By the time the relationship is over, the audience has been shown exactly what the relationship cost both of them, and Mordecai still does not entirely understand his own role in the costing. This is the show's hardest read on its own protagonist. CJ is not Margaret. Mordecai cannot blame the breakup on her trajectory. He cannot tell himself the relationship was impossible because of who she was. The relationship was impossible because of who he was. The freeze made him incapable of being present in the way the relationship required. The cloud shape is the show's externalization of what he failed to read. The theory says CJ exists in the show specifically to remove Mordecai's last alibi. After CJ, he cannot pretend the problem is the partner. After CJ, the problem is identifiably him. And the show, having delivered that data, lets him alone for the remaining seasons. He does not get a third long-running romance. He gets the cosmic plot. He gets the trip to space. He gets the time off from relationships that he needs to figure out, on his own, what the freeze is and how to thaw it. CJ is the last relationship before the off-screen years, where the actual work happens. She does not get a tragic departure. The show is gentle with her. She fades from the show's foreground without bitterness. She becomes someone who used to be in his life. The show, true to form, lets her keep growing off-screen. She has her own life. The cloud, like the robin, is fine without him. That is the ninth theory. CJ is the proof that the partner was never the problem. The freeze is the problem. The show, having shown you Margaret as the partner Mordecai could not follow and CJ as the partner he could not be present with, has now shown you both sides of the freeze and is asking you to hold them in your head at the same time. The freeze is real. The freeze is in him. The freeze is what the show is about. The third woman in this orbit is not in Mordecai's orbit at all. She is in Rigby's. And she is, the show suggests, by the way she is written, the most fully realized adult in the entire cast. She just does not look like one to the people around her. She wears glasses. She is small. She is patient in a way that takes a long time to register as patience. By the time the show ends, she has done more than any other character has done. And the show has somehow let her do it without making her the protagonist. Eileen is a mole. She wears thick round glasses. She works, for the early seasons, at the same coffee shop as Margaret. She is, in the show's introduction of her, presented as Margaret's friend, and as a romantic possibility for Rigby that Rigby is afraid of. The show plays her interest in Rigby for low-stakes comedy for years. He resists her. She does not push. She just keeps showing up, kindly, ready, in a way that does not pressure him and does not retreat. Across the 8 seasons, Eileen grows more than any other character on the show. She begins as a barista. She becomes, by the end of the show, a doctoral student in the sciences. She is, somewhere in the show's later years, working on research that involves an actual academic field. The show treats this with the same casualness it treats everything else. But the casualness is, in this case, the show pretending not to make a big deal out of the most significant character development in the entire run. Nobody else on the show has done what Eileen has done. Nobody else has gone from the entry-level service job to the late stages of a graduate program. Mordecai is still painting in his apartment. Rigby is still Rigby. Eileen is in a lab. Here is the theory. Eileen is the show's actual protagonist, if you measure protagonism by who grows. The show calls itself Mordecai and Rigby's show. The show is named for them. The show centers them. But by the end of the run, the character whose life has changed the most is Eileen, and the character whose life is most fully formed is Eileen, and the character who is in the most stable adult relationship at the end of the show is Eileen. The show has, very quietly, in the background, given her the entire developmental arc that the foreground characters refuse. She does this without becoming a different person. She is, at the end of the show, recognizably the same woman she was at the beginning. The patience is the same. The kindness is the same. The willingness to show up for people who do not always show up for her is the same. She is just, on top of the same self, accumulated a doctorate and a relationship and a sense of purpose that the show treats as ordinary, because the show is, in its DNA, about people for whom ordinary purpose is the rarest possible thing. Watch how she treats Rigby. The treatment is the show's quiet thesis on what love is for. Rigby is, structurally, the 8-year-old in a young man's body. Eileen sees this. Eileen is not deceived about it. She knows what she is signing up for. She is not waiting for him to grow up. She is choosing, with full awareness, to love a permanent 8-year-old. The choice is not naive. The choice is informed. She has decided that the man Rigby is on, the day she decides she loves him, is the man she will love for the rest of her life. And that any growth he does will be a bonus. And any growth he does not do will not be a deal breaker. The theory is that this is what adulthood looks like in the form of love. Adulthood is the ability to love a person for who they are, not for who they might become. Eileen has the ability. The show makes that visible. It also makes visible that this ability is rare. None of the other characters on the show, with the possible exception of High Five Ghost's wife, have it. Mordecai does not have it. He keeps loving the future version of his partner, not the present one. Rigby barely understands he is being loved at all. Benson does not seem to have anyone. Skips lost the chance centuries ago. Eileen has it. And the show, having given her this rare gift, lets her use it. She marries Rigby in the finale. The wedding is staged with full sincerity. There is no irony in it. The mole is marrying the raccoon, and the show is treating the moment as the natural endpoint of a long, patient, adult act of love. There is a moment in one of the later seasons where Eileen, alone, looks at the small workspace she has built for her studies. The camera is brief. The look is brief. The show is telling you, without telling you, that this character has built something, quietly, over years, without making a fuss. While the foreground characters were screaming at each other about cosmic threats, Eileen was reading. She was learning. She was becoming the kind of person who could be in a graduate program. The show records the becoming without dramatizing it. By the time you notice she has done it, she has already done it. The 10th theory is that Eileen is what the show wishes its leads were and knows they are not. The show loves Mordecai and Rigby. The show celebrates them. The show also, in the figure of Eileen, is offering an alternative. A character who is not afraid. A character who shows up. A character who builds her own life while remaining patient with the people around her who are not yet building theirs. She is the show's argument that growth is possible without becoming someone else. She is also the show's argument that love is not the same as need. She does not need Rigby to grow up to love him. She loves him as he is. The lab is her own. The doctorate is her own. The relationship is a separate accomplishment. Each one fits next to the other without one requiring the other. That is, in animation, almost unprecedented. Most shows about love require the partners to fix each other. Eileen does not need Rigby to be fixed. Rigby does not need Eileen to be fixed. They have, together, decided that what each of them is on the day they decided to be together is what they are signing up for. 8 seasons later, in the show's epilogue, they are still together. The agreement holds. The show's quietest miracle is that it lets her be that. It does not subordinate her to Rigby's storyline. It does not turn her into a prize. It lets her grow at her own pace, in her own field, with her own goals, and it lets the marriage to Rigby be one of the things she does rather than the thing she is. That is the most adult portrait of a young woman the show ever produces. And the show treats her like a side character, on purpose, because the show knows that the side characters are where the real action is. The leads are frozen. The leads are kids. The leads are not the people who are doing the work. The mole is doing the work. The show shows you the mole doing the work in glimpses, in the backgrounds of episodes, in conversations the show does not pause for. By the time you have noticed her, she is already done. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The next character has been at the park, intermittently, since around the show's middle seasons. He is, on the surface, the most forgettable member of the cast. A goat, an intern, a young guy who does not say much. He is also, by the end of the show, the cast member with the most complete double life. The show foreshadowed his secret in plain sight for years. Most viewers did not notice. The show was counting on you not to notice. Thomas is a goat. He is an intern at the park. He shows up around the show's 4th season and stays through the rest of the run. He is, by every available measure, the most ordinary character on the show. He does not have a catchphrase. He does not have a clear personality. He is helpful. He is quiet. He does the work. In the show's final season, the show reveals that Thomas's name is not Thomas. His name is Nikolai. He is a Russian deep cover operative. He has been at the park because he was assigned to be at the park. The interning is a cover. The goat persona is the cover. The quiet helpfulness is the cover. He is, in fact, an extremely competent intelligence professional, and his entire time at the park has been an assignment. When the assignment is complete, he leaves. He does not return for the rest of the show. The cast is left holding the recognition that they spent years being friends with someone whose entire identity was a fabrication. The show plays this for a particular kind of comedy that is not quite comedy. The cast does not get over the betrayal in the standard sitcom way. The show acknowledges that the betrayal is real. It also acknowledges that the relationships were also, in their own way, real. Both can be true. Here's the theory. Thomas is the show's argument that everybody in the cast has a hidden interior life that the cast is not paying attention to. The Russian spy reveal is the show making the metaphor literal. Thomas was always more than what the cast saw. The cast saw an intern. The intern was actually a man with an entire other life, an entire other set of obligations, an entire other identity. Running underneath the surface, he showed them every day. The show is asking you whether the same thing is true of every other character on the show. The show is asking you whether Mordecai has a Nikolai inside him, whether Rigby does, whether Benson does. The show does not answer. The show simply uses Thomas to plant the question. The reveal also recasts every Thomas scene that came before. The show, on rewatch, has been telling you who Thomas is for years. The careful neutrality, the quiet professionalism, the way he never quite engaged with the cosmic stakes, the way the others did, the way he always had a slightly different posture in group shots, the way he picked up tasks faster than an intern should pick them up. The show was foreshadowing in plain sight. The show was confident enough in its own audience that it did not feel the need to pay off the foreshadowing until the final season. This is one of the most patient, long-form jokes in animated television. The show set up the punchline several seasons before delivering it. The show did not deliver it until the final stretch. In between, the show let you live with Thomas as if he were exactly what he appeared to be. The trust the show placed in its own writing room to remember the joke, to keep the character consistent for years across multiple writers, to land the reveal without it feeling cheap is unusual. The reveal landed. The character left. The cast had to absorb it. The 11th theory is that Thomas is the show's quiet rebuke to the assumption that you know the people around you. The other characters on the show were certain Thomas was what they thought he was. They were wrong. They were not slightly wrong. They were entirely wrong. The wrongness lasted years. They did not detect it. The detection came only because Thomas himself decided to leave. If Thomas had stayed, they would still believe he was an intern. The detection was not their work. It was his choice. That is the unsettling lesson the show is offering. Some people in your life are not what they appear to be. The not being is not always sinister. Thomas's mission, as the show implies, was not directed against the cast personally. They were not the targets. They were the cover. He needed an ordinary place to be while doing other work. The park provided ordinariness. The friendships were a side effect. The friendships were also, in their way, real to him. He liked them. He returned the high fives. He helped Pops with the small tasks Pops needed help with. He was not pretending to like these people. He was, however, pretending to be a goat named Thomas. When he leaves, he does not get a tearful goodbye. The show declines the sentimental ending. He simply leaves. The mission is complete. The cover is no longer required. The man returns to his actual life, somewhere the cast cannot follow. That is the 11th theory. The most ordinary character on the show was the most extraordinary. The cast did not see it. The show did not insist they see it. The show let the cast be wrong for years on the principle that being wrong about the people you work with is more common than being right. There is one more character in the cast who deserves a theory of his own. He is not on the show full time. He shows up in maybe a handful of episodes across the run. He is, by his own description, exactly what he says he is, with no hidden identity, no double life, no secret cosmic provenance. He is just the angel of death. And he is, by a wide margin, the most well-adjusted character the show ever puts on screen. Death, in regular show, is a tall, thin, pale man with a shaved head and a black motorcycle jacket. He has a British accent. He rides a motorcycle. He has, at various points in the show, a wife and a child. He does his job. The job is, by name, the Angel of Death. He collects souls. He delivers them. He moves on. Death is, in his appearances, almost without exception, calm. He is not anxious about his work. He is not depressed about it. He is not in some kind of existential crisis about being the embodiment of mortality. He just shows up. He does the thing. He goes home. He has a life that is, in several episodes, recognizably suburban. He cooks. He raises a son. He has, in one episode, a small domestic dispute with his wife that the show plays with full sincerity. Here is the theory. Death is the show's most fully adjusted adult. He is the only character in the cast who has fully accepted what he is. He does not mask his identity. He does not perform a different personality to make people comfortable. He does not avoid what his job requires of him. He shows up to it. He is in it. He goes home. The show, in giving Death this effect, is making an argument about adulthood. The argument is that the people who are most at peace are the people who are most fully reconciled to what they actually do. Mordecai is not reconciled to what he does. He is in the holding pattern. Rigby is not reconciled. He is the kid. Benson is reconciled, but not at peace. He yells. Skips is reconciled, but at the cost of motion. Pops is reconciled, but it is a god's reconciliation. Death is reconciled the way a person is reconciled. He is the angel of death. He has accepted that. The acceptance has freed him to be a husband, a father, a competent professional, a member of the larger community. Acceptance is the door. Death walked through it. He is on the other side. The show, in placing Death in this narrative position, is offering its quietest theological hope. The hope is that what is on the other side of the worst thing you can imagine being is not despair. It is competence. It is family. It is dinner with the people you love. The show puts Death, the actual angel of death, in this position to say, very quietly, that the worst thing is not the worst thing. That if you accept what you are, the rest of the life is available. The other characters in the cast cannot do this. Mordecai cannot accept that he is frozen. Rigby cannot accept that he is a kid. Benson cannot accept that he is alone. Skips cannot accept that Mona is gone. Muscle Man, alone among the others, has done some of this work, which is why he is the closest the show has to a death-level adult. The Hammer's death taught him something the rest of the cast has not learned. Death himself learned it before he was Death. The show does not tell you when. The show does not need to. The face tells you. The voice tells you. The way he sits with his wife at dinner tells you. Death rides a motorcycle. The motorcycle is, in animation terms, a signal of cool. It is also, in this character, something more specific. It is the choice of a person who has decided that the thing the culture associates with death, motion, danger, leather, the open road, is also a thing he is allowed to enjoy. He does not have to be a robed figure with a scythe. He can be a guy in a jacket. The jacket is part of the acceptance. He has the right to enjoy his life because his life is the only life he has, and his life happens to be the Angel of Death. The 12th theory is that the Angel of Death is the model. He is what the show wishes the cast could become. He is the figure who has traveled all the way through and returned to the dinner table without losing the ability to be ordinary. He is the show's argument that ordinariness, in the end, is the destination, not transcendence, not cosmic stakes, not enlightenment. Just the ability to come home and have dinner with the people you love after a long day of doing the impossible thing your life has assigned you to do. That is what the show is, ultimately, about. 12 different characters, 12 different theories, all of them pointing, in different ways, at the same thing. The thing is the small life. The small life is the answer. Every character in the show is, in some way, either trying to find the small life, refusing the small life, mourning the small life, embodying the small life, or pretending not to want the small life. The Angel of Death has the small life. He is, against everything you would expect, the cast member with the least to learn. There are 3 more characters worth a theory each before the closing. They are smaller in the show. They do not get full episodes the way the leads do, but they each sit at a particular pressure point in the show's emotional architecture, and the show is doing something specific with each of them that deserves naming. The first is Rigby's younger brother. Don is taller than Rigby. Don is louder. Don is, by every available metric, the brother who became an adult on schedule. He has a job. He has friends. He is, when he appears on screen, universally liked. People want to be around him. The room organizes itself in his direction. Here is the theory. Don is what Rigby decided he was not going to be. He is the alternate universe Rigby. The Rigby who somewhere in childhood did not stop competing, did not stop growing, did not refuse the developmental track the family was offering. The 2 brothers are, in some real way, the same person split at a junction point, with Don taking the path Rigby refused. The show frames Don as a comic figure. He is loud. He is overwhelming. He invades the park. He hugs Mordecai too long. He does the things a successful younger brother would do to a failed older brother, and the show plays each invasion for laughs. The theory says the laughs are cover. Underneath, the show is showing you Rigby's worst fear in human form. The fear is not that Rigby will fail to grow up. The fear is that growing up means becoming Don. And Rigby has decided, with full knowledge, that he would rather be the failure than become the version of his brother who succeeds. This is, in its own way, an act of integrity. Rigby looks at Don and sees something he does not want to be. The show does not tell you whether Rigby's read on his brother is correct. The show does not need to. The point is the read itself. The point is that Rigby looked at his own potential adult form and rejected it and decided to be something else instead, even if the something else is small. Don, for his part, loves Rigby completely. The love is uncomplicated. Don does not understand why Rigby is the way he is, and Don does not need to understand. Don shows up. Don hugs. Don praises. The show is, without naming it, telling you that the family Rigby came from is not the problem. The family is fine. The family loves him. The freeze in Rigby is not in response to neglect. The freeze is in response to abundance. The brother got everything Rigby was supposed to get, and Rigby did not know how to be in the same room as that, and Rigby chose to be small instead. That is the 13th theory. The successful brother is not the villain. The successful brother is the proof that the freeze was a choice made by a kid in a particular family at a particular moment that has been costing Rigby his entire adult life and has also, in some way, kept him intact. Without the freeze, he would be Dawn. He has decided that being himself is more important than being Dawn. The show respects the decision. The second character is Mr. Maillard. He is Pops' father. He is the owner of the park. He is the only character on the show who can yell at Pops and have Pops actually go quiet. He is older than the rest of the cast by an undisclosed margin. He has been, somewhere off screen, a father for a very long time. Here is the theory. Mr. Maillard is the show's hidden god behind the god. He is older than Pops. He has been a parent for as long as Pops has been alive, which, as the final season reveals, is an unimaginable length of time. He has been managing his cosmic son's choice to live small, to work at a park, to be charming and naive and easily distracted by birds for the entire duration of the universe. The management is the entire content of the relationship. Mr. Maillard does not approve of his son's lifestyle. He never has. He does not think his son's choice to participate in ordinary life is a good use of cosmic resources. He has, for thousands of years, tried to convince his son to be more than he is. Pops has, for thousands of years, declined. The dynamic between them is the show's funniest religious idea. The god is a son. The god has a father. The father is annoyed. The father wants the son to take the family business more seriously. The son keeps eating ice cream. This is, in some sense, every parent and every adult child who has ever disagreed about what a life is for. The show puts that disagreement in the form of two lollipop men, one taller, one shorter, and lets the cosmic stakes be the punchline rather than the point. When Pops dies, Mr. Maillard does not give a speech. The show declines to make him a grieving father in any conventional way. He continues. He keeps owning the park. He keeps employing Benson. He keeps doing the work the cosmic order asks of him. The grief is off stage. The show implies, without showing, that the father's grief is on a scale the audience would not be equipped to witness. The show shows you a small old man in a top hat and lets the rest stay invisible. That is the 14th theory. The cosmic father is the only being in the show whose grief is too large to be shown. The show respects that grief by leaving it off stage. The show does not give Mr. Maillard a tearful goodbye scene with his dying son. The goodbye, in cosmic terms, has been happening for thousands of years and will continue happening for thousands more. Putting it on screen would diminish it, so the show keeps it where it belongs, which is everywhere except on screen. The third character is not a character. It is the park itself. The acreage of grass and trees and small buildings and parking lots, and the snack bar and the picnic tables, and the gazebo and the office, and the workshop where Skips lives, and the house where the leads live. The park is, by the show's own admission, a character. The park gets its own arcs. The park gets rebuilt. The park gets launched into space. The park is, in the cosmic plot, the unit that the cosmic war is fought over. Why this small piece of land? Why this specific group of buildings and trees? The show never quite explains. Here's the theory. The park is the holding pattern given physical form. It is the place where the freeze can survive. It is the kind of low-stakes employment that allows a person in their 20s to postpone the rest of their life indefinitely without anybody intervening. It is the kind of small community where 8 or 9 people can know each other's routines and still not know each other deeply. It is, structurally, the perfect environment for the developmental holding pattern Mordecai is in. The park is not just a setting. The park is a condition. That is why the cosmic plot is the cosmic plot. The cosmic forces of the universe have decided, for reasons the show only partly explains, that this specific place matters. The park matters because the holding pattern matters. The holding pattern matters because every person on Earth is, at some point in their life, inside one. The cosmic war is the war over whether the holding pattern gets to keep existing. Anti-Pops wants to end it. Pops wants to preserve it. The conflict is, on the surface, a conflict over a small park. Underneath, it is a conflict over whether young people are allowed to be in transitional states without being judged for being there. That is the 15th theory. The park is the show's argument that the holding pattern itself deserves protection. That young adulthood, with all its smallness and its drift and its postponement, is not a phase to be hurried through. It is a place. It deserves to exist. The cosmic forces of the universe have, in this show, gone to war over its right to exist. The show is, in its own way, defending the listener's right to be wherever they are right now, in their own version of the park, doing their own version of the small job, postponing their own future in their own particular way. That right is, the show suggests, sacred. The show went to space to defend it. Worth holding the park theory for one more beat before moving on, because it is the theory that ties the others together. Every character on the show is in some kind of relationship to the park as a place. Mordecai uses the park as the location of his freeze. Rigby uses it as the place where the 8-year-old gets to keep being 8. Benson uses it as the structure that holds his grief in place. Pops uses it as the small life he chose. Skips uses it as the only environment that has not changed since Mona died. Muscle Man uses it as the home he built around his father's absence. High Five Ghost uses it as the small community he was already at peace inside of. Margaret uses it as the place she had to leave. CJ uses it as the place she fit into briefly and could not stay in. Eileen uses it as the place she met the man she would marry, while building the rest of her life elsewhere. Thomas used it as the cover. Death does not work at the park, but he keeps showing up to it for reasons the show treats as natural. Don visits it because his brother is there. Mr. Maillard owns it because he owns the small inheritance of his cosmic son's choice to live on Earth. 15 relationships to one piece of land. 15 different uses for the same handful of acres. The show is, in its quietest moments, telling you that this is what places are for. A place is not a backdrop. A place is the thing that holds the people who use it in particular configurations. Change the place, and the configurations change. Lose the place, and the people scatter. The cosmic war over the park is a war over the right of a place to keep doing this work, to keep holding people in their particular shapes long enough for them to figure out what their next shape is going to be. The park is, the show suggests, doing necessary work. Necessary work that nothing else can do. Necessary work that, if it goes away, leaves the people who used it without an option for what to do next. That is what the show ends up being about. Not the cosmic plot, not the wedding, not the painting career. The work the park does for 15 different people across 8 seasons of being the place they all happen to be. When the show ends, the park is still there. It is still doing its work. The next group of young people in their 20s who do not know what to do next will, the show implies, find their way to it. They will work the small jobs. They will live in the house. They will be held inside the freeze. They will eventually leave. The park will continue. The work will continue. The cycle will continue. The show is, in its final moments, handing the place to whoever needs it next. That is the gift. The gift is a place to stay until you are ready to leave. The park at closing time has a specific quality of light. The cast is gone. The cart is empty. The snack bar is closed. The day is over. 8 seasons of episodes are done. The cosmic plot is resolved. The wedding has happened. The painter has begun his career. The mole has finished her degree. The Yeti has put his hand on the wall one more time. The ghost is asleep at home with his wife and son. The angel of death is having dinner. The Russian intelligence officer is back in his actual life. The brother is at home with his own family. The lollipop man is gone, and the world has continued without him. The cosmic father is alone in the office. What you are left with, after the show ends, is a landscape of theories about what to do with a life. The show, in putting them all together, is not telling you which one is right. The show is showing you the full landscape. Some of the theories are warnings. Some are alternatives. Some are what you might already be without knowing it. Mordecai is the man who is frozen. Rigby is the kid who chose to stay. Benson is the adult absorbing his loss. Pops is the god choosing presence. Skips is the immortal who paid for his stasis. Muscle Man is the man keeping faith with his father by not changing. High Five Ghost is the destination on the other side. Margaret is the future arriving early. CJ is the proof that the freeze is in him. Eileen is the patient adult, building everything around the 8-year-old. Thomas is the hidden interior life. Death is the model nobody recognizes. Dawn is the version Rigby refused to become. Mr. Maillard is the grief that does not fit on screen. The park is the holding pattern itself. That is 15 theories. 15 ways the show is asking the same question. The question is not how to grow up. The question is how to be in a life that is, by definition, in transition. How to be in your 20s. How How to be at a job that is not the job you will have. How to be in a friendship that will, eventually, have to change. How to be in a moment that is not the moment you wanted, but is the moment you have. The show offers 15 answers, none of them correct, all of them honest. If you watch the show closely enough, you can find yourself in one of them. You can find your friends in others. You can find what you are afraid of, and what you are hoping for, and what you have already become without realizing it. That is the show's gift. 15 characters, 15 theories. All of them, in the end, about the same thing. About what it costs to be alive. About what it costs to be in a holding pattern. About what is on the other side if you are willing to wait long enough to find out. The show is gentle with all of them. None of the characters get punished. None of them get redeemed in a way that requires them to become someone else. The show loves what each of them is on the day the show finds them, and the show keeps loving them as they accumulate the small changes the years bring. By the end, every character is a slightly different version of themselves, not a transformed version, a more settled version. The settling is the only kind of growth the show believes in. That is, in its own way, a generous theory of human change. It says people do not become other people. They become more deeply who they were. The work is not to invent yourself. The work is to find out who you have been the whole time. The freeze, when it lifts onto the same person it had been freezing. There is nobody underneath the freeze who is different from the person on top of it. The show is the demonstration. 8 seasons of demonstration. Of a cast settling into their own shapes. Of a world that, after enormous cosmic events, looks remarkably like the world it started as. The park at closing time. The cart in the parking lot. The day is over. The next day will start. Whatever you do with it is up to you. The show has done its work. It has shown you the options. It has not told you what to choose. It has, in the most generous gesture an animated comedy can make, trusted you to choose for yourself. If you enjoyed this video essay, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next.